and all. So I'm using my laptop and other things, and let us see. I mean, I hope that things will work it out. Some persons are asking few questions. Let me first see. Deviating from the slides a little bit, can you explain how L1 regularizers, L2 regularizers? Okay, L1 leads to the feature selection, while this could you touch base upon regularization? Okay. Okay, good. Anis Bose and Samir Sepi. Samir Sipi. Yeah, so I will answer them. But the point is again, regularizer. So if I say L1 regularizers introduces sparsity and L2 don't, then you will ask so many questions. And they are definitely important. And for again that, I can give you, my own lecture slides in which we have talked about that why. But first, let us talk about regularization. But I didn't have even yet talked about learning. So I assume that in our previous lecture, Dilip must have talked about learning, and he said that okay, you learn, and accordingly you use some regularizers as well. Now I am going to give you a very real-time example by which you can understand that why do we require regularization, maybe L1, L2, or dropout or other things. Okay, and then we will move towards our intuition. Yes, so the point is that regularization. Just consider a student who is preparing for ITJE. So he's preparing for ITJE and he is being trained to solve so many different types of derivatives. Differential calculus, I give you an integral, you are going to solve that for me, and then I give you something else, and then again you solve it for me. Then I give you some problem from Erudov, you are again trained to solve for it. The same thing is going to happen with your network. I give you physics problem, you solve. I give you chemistry problem, you solve. I give you integration, you solve. I give you coordinate geometry, you solve. And how you are solving, it's a supervised learning, because you are having your faculty members, your coaching guides, this and that, and they are letting you to solve the thing. Similar thing is happening with our neural network. I give you a data and you give me the correct class. It is incorrect, and then you find out that what is the correct output, and find out the distance between them using MSE or cross entropy or any other loss function, and keep on changing your weights in such a way so as to minimize that loss function. So being a network, you become completely trained over a given data set to somehow solve that problem. And you keep on doing. Now just give you the analogs that JEE guy is also doing the same thing. He's getting so many questions, keep on solving. And one day what happened that I called that guy, please come here. Can you bring 1 kilo potato for me? So now this question is completely out of order. 1 kg potato. So I need to go to the market. Okay, so he will go to the market because he never or most of the time don't visit market, or even visit market only to purchase few things that he know. Registers, book, this, that, whatever. He don't know how to purchase potato. And then what will happen? This is going to happen because of the fact that your network is not being generalized. Your learning is not regularized. The learning that JEE guy is actually happening or going through, everyone is saying, hey, you need to clear this exam, you need to study Erudov, you need to study this, you need to study that, and keep on doing that stuff every day. India wins World Cup, he don't know what to do. Nadal is playing, Nadal is playing his French Open. Federer got exited in the third round, fourth round. You just ask, he will say, who is this Roger Federer? Or even if he know who is this Roger Federer, he will not be aware of the current things which are happening. Now then you will say that why does that require? It is required because you are not only being trained to clear JEE. That guy is not only being trained to clear JEE. At some point of time, when he came here at IITs, he need to face so many different challenges and he is not aware of. He even is not in a good position to write a complete, paragraph about certain things, because he has not given any focus to English, because it's not being asked in JEE exam. But is that true? Is that learning proper? Don't you think that that learning itself got biased towards a particular goal? And that means that your learning becomes biased, your classification boundary becomes biased, and because of that, you started to your classifier started to give biased outputs, and your variance is very high. What does that mean? That if I give you physics question, completely solved; mathematics question, completely solved; chemistry question, completely solved; ask history, you don't know; ask anything which is related to, talk. Yes, I'm sorry. Are you able to listen? Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. So my point was that, regularization of a network means that instead of or along with your goal, you need not to stop learning your goals, stop learning your, loss function, minimizing your loss function. But along with your loss functions, I am going to add one more term. That is you need to understand each and every solution for a physics, chemistry, and math problem, but also in a day, maybe 15 minutes, please watch TV, play guitar, play piano, go to play cricket, at least know that what is happening in the news. So that is actually network regularization from very top, by the way. And now let us talk about the L1 and L2 type of regularizations. So this essentially means that whatever the hyperplane that you are learning, till now I didn't have talked about that. I just say that whatever the hyperplane you wanted to learn that. But give me the best possible solution. When I say L1 or L2, it actually says that given that hyperplane, if I compute its L1 value, if I compute its L2 value, it should also not to be very high. It is nowhere related to your loss. It is related to the parameters. Now, parameter is different. What are they? W1, W2, W3, W4. Loss, what is that? It is Y and Y hat, how far they are. So minimize that, how far Y and Y hat need to be. It has to be as less as possible. Along with that, cross entropy loss function, your loss function will become loss function is equal to cross entropy plus some lambda times L1 regularization or L2 regularization. This lambda typically is very small. It is almost like 0.01, 0.001 or so. And what is L1 or L2? That is the L1 or L2 norm of your hyperplane. So your hyperplane need not to be very big, very complex, very, parameters need to be very high and big, so that you are completely getting biased towards certain input or certain data set. And that's the top way understanding. Anish and Samir, is that okay? Appreciate Aditya sir for
Yes,
giving
sir.
me
Thank you.
the thank you.
Yeah,
Understood.
Aditya sir, thank you very much.
Understood. Yes. So most of the time I will try to give you, examples which are completely practical, and mathematically things require much more elaborated understanding. And for that, lectures are available. We will share those things to you. Fine. And by the way, my lectures are available. Then there are so many other different guys who have taught far better than me mathematically. So, those things are anyways available. But with whatever I have said, exactly the same thing is happening. So that is the point. Even with the dropout, it is going to be the thing that we certain neurons we take and don't consider them, because we want each and every neuron to be versatile. It should not be the case that only few neurons are working. Only, Ramesh is asking, or sorry, Samir is asking, or Anish is asking, or, in between Uma madam is asking, or 3-4 guys are only asking questions. Chirag is asking. What we want is that then what we'll do is that we will not be considering their questions and keep on ask more questions or ask more questions. So that is actually the dropout. We do not want it to, make our network rely only on very few neurons. By the way, let us go on to the intuition of neural networks. Fine. Now, this is going to be a very essentially important, half an hour maybe, in which you all may be in a position to really understand that why do we require more and more neurons. By the way, you all actually till now have understood about so many different things, about neural network, and so many stuff over which you people are working. But the point is that I am just covering to fill up all the gaps, and then we will go to CNN. By the way, we are already getting late. In fact, we got at least an hour delayed because of our slow lecturing. So I will somehow try to compensate, don't worry. Somebody is asking, thank you, defibrillating me, Aditya sir, thank you, really nice. Okay, so no questions. Coming on to the interpretation, intuition. Yes, wait a minute, because I guess yes, so intuition of the neural network is starting with this, that our neural network can be giants. They may be having 1 layer, 2 layer, 5 layer, 50 layers, or so many, and they can have millions and millions and thousands of layers and millions of parameters. And by the way, this has happened. We have huge amount of layers and huge amount of parameters. But essentially what they are doing, they are trying to partition the feature space with respective to an objective, so as to minimize that and get the minimum number of misclassification. So if I have something like this, what I want is a class like this, or maybe a this, maybe a this, whatever the which is going to differentiate between my two of my classes. But if I show you L1, then L2, then L3, then surely you are looking for L3, not L1 and L2. So if you use gradient descent and parameterize your boundary by your theta set of parameters that you, by the way, wanted to learn, you may start with some random line and keep on optimizing over your loss so as to get the best possible hyperplane for you. But initial planes may be very wrong, completely bad. So we need to update these parameters so as to minimize our objective function. And we are using gradient descent or stochastic gradient descent iteratively, we just have seen. But still there is an issue that in these gradient descent or whatever the algorithms, you require derivative. And if I use, so what you want, your objective function is going to be your misclassification. What does that mean? If I take this line, suppose that if I take L1 line like this, you can see that this is misclassified and this got misclassified. Two misclassifications, and you wanted to minimize that. So you will say that why my loss function cannot be my misclassification. Yeah, it can be misclassification, but you cannot differentiate because it's actually a discrete function. So how can we get the differentiable loss functions? So can we use logistic loss function? Now, what is this logistic loss function, by the way? Okay. First thing is that logistic loss function is a continuous loss function. But what is logistic loss function? So logistic loss function is a function. So before that, what is this function? Error function or the misclassification. It is considering each and every point, whether it is classified or misclassified, but it is actually only giving weight to those which are misclassified. If you are misclassified, I am counting. If you are classified, I am not counting. So that is misclassification function. So it is actually penalizing those which are incorrectly classified. Now, logistic loss function says that, see, I am going to penalize each and everyone. You just remember your old class, we all have got, several different types of teachers. Now, some teacher was there, he will come in the class and he's going to penalize each and every student, irrespective of the fact that whether you have done your work or not. But you will be penalized more if you are incorrectly classified, and you will be penalized less if you are correctly classified, which means that everyone is going to be penalized. If you have not done your homework, more penalization. If you have done your work, less penalization. What does that mean? This is my line. They are correctly classified, hence less error. Incorrectly classified, more error. And then if I add, your value will not be equal to your discrete function. It's going to be a continuous function. Now, by the way, how to design this is the thing that we are somehow going to see in between. But our point is that, logistic loss function is the function which will penalize each and every point, whether you are correctly classified or incorrectly classified. I take that error, and what is that error? Add all of them. This is the error. And you can say even that, if you are incorrectly classified, your error is going to be high. And even it depends that how far you are in the others territory. If you are too far in that others territory, your loss will be high. Why? Because if you are very high, you want your plane to be moving towards yourself, and it will need to change in such a way so that sometimes it may become this. So you need to pull and push these planes in such a way so that you got better classified. Misclassification based confusion matrix. Samir is asking, yes, type 1, type 2 error. So we right now do not want to confuse the class with this, but yes, similar to that. Yeah, that's the misclassification and confusion matrix is going to be there. Now, the question is, how to get such a loss function? Which type of loss function? Logistic loss function, which will penalize each and every point and more to them who are incorrectly classified, so that you get a continuous loss function. So if I give you something like this, what does that mean? So this is my 2D space in which I am working. You may say that why 2D, why not 3D? Right now we are considering 2D. It can be 3D, 4D, 5D, whatever you want. Right now it is 2D. And if I give you a line like this, what does that mean? Whether it's a good or a bad, that is the thing I am not saying. I am saying that given this 2D space and a line like this, this is my class 1 and this is my class 2. That is the thing that we got to know. Okay. Given this line, this territory is 50-50 territory. What does that mean, 50-50 territory? 50-50 territory mean that you are not clear whether it is to my left or to my right. Or if I say that it's to my slightly left or slightly right, you are not very sure about their classes. With respect to this hyperplane, with respect to this line, there is a zone where you are not very confident, and you may say that 50-50. Likely to be yellow, surely to be yellow, likely to be red, surely to be red. How can we do this? You just take this 2D space with respect to this given line, because I'm giving you this line, because with respect to this line, we wanted to give penalty. We wanted to find out that what is the loss of this current line. So given this line, given this 2D space, I discretize this space like this. You can easily do parallel lines. And if you have a point over here, all the points which are here, you know, they may get 0, they may get -1, -2, -3, 1, 2, and 3. And if I give you any point over here with respect to this line, you will tell that, okay, what is its value? It's 2, it's 3, it is 1, this is 0, this is -1. But this is not the probability. And right now we are now going towards yellowness because it's a binary classification. So 1 minus yellowness is actually the redness. We want a probability distribution, something like this, that if I give you a line like this, this is actually the zone 0.5, where huge amount of uncertainty is there. In fact, something like this, huge amount of uncertainty is something over here. As soon as you move towards this, yellowness keeps on getting high, moves in this direction, yellowness keeps on decreasing. Okay. So this is not the probability distribution. And this is actually a probability distribution, but not a linearly, distributed probability distribution. What you can see is that lines are close here and keep on getting far. Why? See, this is India-Pakistan boundary. During India, if it is, we are over here, it's suppose that your India and Pakistan boundary. The point is that if you move slightly towards India, the risk of your life greatly got reduced. And then you keep on reducing. And now at this point, you are now in UP. And if you are now in UP, your risk of your life is almost very less. And now if you move here 1 kilometer and you move 1 kilometer over here, both of them are not same way affecting the risk of your life. And now you move to South India, and their 1 kilometer definition is completely different. Pakistan even never come and claim for something somewhere in South India. So the point is that the amount of risk is not linearly changing. It is changing fast over here and keep on gradually decreasing as we move towards these sites. And the reason is that these guys are much more complex. Now you go to Kashmir, and at Kashmir, if you wanted to find out terrorist or something, it is slightly more challenging and complex than somewhere in South India, because there are huge amount of persons, and it may be very difficult for you. So that is why you wanted to have things more concentrated over here. Your always your attention is towards the boundaries, because all those points which are very near to the boundary, they may create issue. And please don't take it politically why I have chosen this Kashmir, because things are recording. The point is that I just wanted to say is that it is Kashmir, or it is the boundary location, because there India and Pakistan boundary is there. And because of that issue, risk of life is changing if you just move 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, and 5 kilometers. But that's not happening maybe interior or central India or South India or wherever you go. And same is the case inside that Pakistan. Maybe certain places where they are completely not having any issues, but again they are also having issues, maybe related to the boundary areas. But the point is, yes.
Just one question. What is the difference between these two blocks? In that other block, you have that red and yellow, and here you are going from minimum probability to, like, just wanted to know what between the top, the top right and the bottom right boxes.
Yes, so here we have said that this is the meaning or the theoretical meaning of any hyperplane. If I
Okay.
give you a hyperplane, which means that this is yellow regime, this is red regime.
Okay.
And then I wanted to mathematically somehow fix up some distribution.
Okay.
So given this line,
Okay.
50-50 line, this is completely yellow. This
Okay.
this is surely not yellow.
Got it.
Got
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So from here, how we can come up over here is that first thing is that this is not at all probability. So how can you make things between 0 and 1? That's a squashing function. And that to a non-linear squashing function, this is a sigmoid function for you.
Okay.
Sigmoid Sx is equal to 1 divided by 1 plus e power minus x, which will take your whole number line minus infinity to plus infinity, and only going to give you 0 and 1 by the way. Okay,
Got it, Prof. Thank you.
got it, fine. And this 0 is going to be mapped to 0.5. And anything which is very negative, they are, almost we are certain about that they are belonging to the other class. So we are not much bothered, and very small amount of, importance in sigmoid is actually being given to them. Similarly, if it is very high positive, this is not given very much importance because we are almost sure that it's belonging to some other class. We are only interested, in fact, more interested in this domain, and that is why most of the band of our sigmoid, that is between 0.1 to maybe 0.8, is actually being given to the guys which are actually over here, because any simple functions are going to solve things for you over here, and they are the simple instances, most simplest instance of that problem. Complex instance are here.
So Aditya sir.
Yes sir, please ask.
So is this sigmoid more relevant or applicable only for the binary classification?
No, it is just an example. And sigmoid is actually it can be x, and this x can actually be multidimensional.
Okay, because we are saying it as 0 translates to 0.5, like half of it, right, which separates left and right. So
Yes.
if multidimensional, then still it fits in the whole 0 to 1 space somehow.
Yeah, so that's true. So the point is that sigmoid is always going to be applied over intermediate neurons, and soon you will see that these neurons are trying to find out or figure out a specific pattern, and that pattern is present or not present is going to define that whether they are going to fall fire or not fire. And that is why that value need to be converted between 0 and 1, which means that instead of telling whether it is there or not, can you give me a probability that by what probability you are saying that this pattern is present or not present?
Got it completely, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Prof, for red, it will be completely reverse, right?
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
1 minus of yellowness.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So there are so many different types of activation functions like sigmoid, tan, ReLU, so on. So if you are interested, again, huge amount of literature is actually being there. If you are interested, you can go and read from there. But we are saying that most of the time we will be applying sigmoid. But there are so many others. In fact, ReLU will also come in between. So I will somehow tell sigmoid and ReLU. But all of them are relevant, and they are new activation functions, and they are being used for so many different reasons. Yes. Now just take this example. I'm having a two-dimensional space. I'm having a line. I'm having certain points. 4 points are there. Okay. Now you can see that this is red point. This is misclassified red point. This is yellow point, and this is misclassified yellow point. Now the point is that you can see that we are trying to find out a function which can somehow figure out that logistic function. I just have said that I want someone who will penalize each and everyone but those guys are going to be penalized more, which are misclassified. Right now, I am saying that with respect to this line, what is the probability that this guy is red? Now you see that this guy is red, the probability will be very less because it is in the wrong direction. What is the probability that this guy is going to be red? It is high because it is in the correct direction. What is the probability that this guy will be yellow? It is in the wrong direction. Value will again be very less, and this value will be actually high. And you can see that they are not very high because they boundary line is actually 0.5. So maybe 0.6, 0.7, and these guys are going to get less value. And what are they? They are the probability. These values are the probability by which they are actually belonging to their correct class. Okay. Then what is the joint probability that all the points are correctly classified? With respect to this line, what is the joint probability that all of them belongs to their correct classes? You just multiply them because they are independent. So just multiply and you will get this value. This is nothing but the likelihood. You can say that, okay, with this probability, all of them are belonging to their correct class. Okay. I want such a line that will maximize this likelihood. Right. I want that L that actually maximize this likelihood. So likelihood can be used as the gain function. Somebody was asking as well. So I am looking to maximize this L such a way whatever the line I am getting is giving me the maximum gain function. We need to get that L which maximize this likelihood. Okay.
But Prof, just one question. Once you multiply and once you get that value, all information is lost. So now it's all scrambled. So what value can you get from that number, likelihood number?
Yeah, so this is nothing but my loss function L, which is nothing but dependent upon my line. And my line is dependent upon my parameter theta. What are they? W0, W1, and W2. So my loss function, which is actually this, I wanted to see that my loss, how my loss is changing when I change W0, W1, and W2.
Okay. So in effect, you want to increase the probabilities, individual probabilities.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And how this is going to be optimized is that del L by del W0, del L by del W1, del L by del W2. And if you take this and modify your current W's using them as the stochastic gradient descent, the thing I just have said, you get new parameters, and these new parameters may be, something like you, something like this.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. So starting
Sir,
from
one
this,
more question.
1 minute. So we will change it like this. And at some point you will reach to the best possible way. Yes, now you ask.
Okay. Individual probabilities are always less than 1. So when we multiply all those individual probability to get a joint probability, which will always be much lesser. Now, how this gives an intuition that whether we are going in right direction or not.
That is true. And that's perfectly true. And that is our next slide. So thank you very much. Yes. So likelihood we wanted to maximize. And he has said that there are two issues, by the way. Things are multiplying. Loss cannot be multiplicative. Loss need to be additive. Right? You have got 5 points. Each of them is having loss. We need to add all of them. And that is our loss. Here we are multiplying, by the way, because it's a joint probability. Now the second point is that values are always between 0 and 1. If you multiply, become more and more small, and practically it becomes so small that you will not be even able to optimize. First thing, how I wanted a function which will convert multiplication to addition. How can you do that?
Take the log.
Take the log. That's the first thing. Second thing is that if I take a log of probability, it's going to be positive or negative.
Negative.
It's going to be negative. So that's why negative log. Now, you take likelihood, take the negative log of likelihood, and then either you can maximize your likelihood or minimize your negative log likelihood, by the way. So this is actually one slide in which you all can see the stuff that, okay, this is our not a good plane. This is a good plane. These points again remains to be the same. Points are not changing. Our line is changing. Right now our line is here, then our line comes over here. This is the negative log of all these points. And if I add, so this is my likelihood. This is my likelihood. And this is my negative log likelihood. So you can see the same thing if I do it over here for a good hyperplane. You can see that likelihood from this got incremented to this, and my negative log likelihood, which was 4.8, got decremented to this. So a good thing is happening. So either you maximize your likelihood or you minimize your log likelihood. So log likelihood need to be minimized. Now that is your loss function. Your loss function is that given any line, you find out how far that point is, place it, find out the probability, apply sigmoid over that, take the log likelihood of that and negative of that. That is your loss. And that is, by the way, logistic loss. This is a logistic loss for you. And you add all of them the way in which I have shown, like this or this. Either you maximize or you minimize. You maximize the likelihood, minimize the log likelihood. Till now, if you have any questions, please ask. Then I will move on to my next section. Yes, if you have any questions, you can ask. Very easy and simple. No questions. Very good. Okay, let me take a quick poll. Maybe, okay. So if you all in a position to understand each and everything, no issues, no problem, then please raise your hand. Please, you can raise your hands. I just wanted to count how many hands are getting raised. Yeah, please raise your hands. I want to see that if you are all able to understand. Only how many? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are so many who are not raising the hands. Amit Wali, Charu, Chirag, Gaurav, Indian. If you don't understand, that's fine. Please don't raise your hand. Write your feedback. That's fine. We will somehow try to manage. But if you are able to understand, please raise your hands. Minakshi. And yes, I guess that good amount of you have raised your hands. That's good. That's good. But Praveen is still not raising his hand. Rashmi and so on. Chitij. Yes. I guess that okay, you all are now. And oh, good. I have got most of you got, thank you very much. Okay, fine. So let's go to the next part. Now, then you will say that, sir, till now I have not got any intuition and anything related to a neural network. Wait, I'm going to connect each and everything. And that is the essential 10 to 15 more minutes for you. So log likelihood minimization is going to give us the linear boundary. Now let us say that I have got, two-dimensional plane like this, in which I am having red as my class 1 and yellow as my class 2. And God has somehow came and give me this hyperplane boundary. 3x plus 4y equal to 5. You will keep on asking, how you have got 3, 4, and 5. In fact, how you have got this line. Forget, God has given me, Oracle has given me. Okay, I have got this boundary. I wanted to know how my single neuron is going to do classification. It's very simple. You take any point, its x is going here, its x is going here, its y is going here. It got multiplied by 3, y got multiplied by 4, and neuron is just checking whether it is more than 5 or less than 5. It's going to fire, or saying class A or class B. Clear. So now you understood the point that that one single neuron is doing classification for you. How we have got this 3, 4, and 5? That is backpropagation. That is backpropagation being covered in our previous lecture, and we just have seen as well. But given such a single neuron, and it's actually have learned a boundary. Understand, one neuron can learn one boundary. In fact, one hyperplane. It's trying to learn. What is that hyperplane? 3x plus 4y more than 5 or less than 5. It's going to say that it is yes or it is no. The good thing is that there is actually a linear boundary over here, and he was able to understand that, okay, single neuron can learn. Now you just see that this case, because this is the case most of the time you are going to have when you cannot have a linearly separable, clearly demarcated boundary. It don't exist at all. Yeah. So if it don't exist, okay. Yeah. Okay. Meenakshi Shastri has said that trying to understand good. Anish Bose. Is the error transformed to be normally distributed in the boundary slide you shared in the sigmoid function for yellowness, and the classification is this. See, is the error to be normally distributed? So see, the point is that why error will be also normally distributed, because your boundary itself is a non-linear, a boundary is having a hyperplane, but your boundary, you can say that demarcations are non-linear. So if in South India you can move huge amount of spaces, nobody is banning, you can move freely, but in Kashmir you can see that these guys are really having pain. They need to take so many permissions even to move from one place to another place. A huge amount of effort that need to take. So if I say that error is also not being, the same way distributed uniformly throughout each and every region. And that is anyways true. That is why you wanted to concentrate more on a specific region than less on the regions which are very far from the boundary. If you are very far from the boundary, you are not required for a classifier at all. In fact, you will started to manipulate that classifier. So we want only those guys which are very near to the boundaries, and they need to be somehow, and they are the best possible samples. Most of the time, if you are getting very easy and simple samples to differentiate between two classes, you will not be learning much. Your delta or your derivatives are not going to be very high. And if your derivatives are not high, learning is also not high. Yes. So our question is that how can we learn these non-linear boundaries? Because we just have seen that to single neuron, it's actually trying to learn one hyperplane. Now here, one hyperplane you cannot learn. So you can have, one hyperplane like this. You can have another hyperplane like this. So you can have lines like this. But can you learn a boundary like this? Now that's the question. We need to learn non-linear boundaries in a modular function, modular fashion, or hierarchy using the layered network. I am going to have a layered network which will try to learn multiple boundaries, and then we try to combine those boundaries so as to get this non-linear classification. How these regions are going to be combined. Suppose that I have a neuron like this. You just see that this is my red class, same red class. So data remains to be the same. One neuron is looking it in a this way, other neuron is looking it in a this way. Neuron 1 is trying to figure out this boundary, neuron 2 is actually looking for this boundary. And if I merge both of them, if I merge neuron 1 and neuron 2, you are nothing but merging two regions. That two, by giving certain weight to this guy and certain weight to this guy. If I give W1 weight to this and W2 weight to this neuron, and if this weightage is equal, if this weightage is equal, probably you may get something like this. But suppose that this weightage is high. If this weightage is high, your final boundary will actually be looking like more as your R1. Or if this weightage is high, your final boundary may be more towards the R2. But if both of them are equal or maybe very similar, you may learn something like this.
Prof, is it linear addition or is it
No.
addition are we talking about? Okay.
Yes. By the way, this is going to be a combination, and very soon you will see that how we are combining, and it is linear, but applied at last we will be applying non-linear function like activation function to make it non-linear.
Okay.
Okay. So one neuron may learn something like this, second neuron may learn something like this, and there is another neuron which is trying to learn orchestration between both of them so as to learn W1 and W2 in such a way so as to learn boundaries like this. Yes. So my X and Y, you all remember what were they? They were my input values, my 2D plane, and this is my point. So if that is my point, X will come over here, Y will go over there. And neuron 1 is actually learning two things. W11, W11 and W21. And neuron 2 is actually learning W12 and W22. Okay. Both of them are having its own biases, W10 and W20. So each and every neuron is not doing nothing special. You all know it is having a connection from X, a connection from Y, and its own bias. Previously, it was W1 and W2 and W0. Now this is W10, W11 and W21. And this is W12 and W22 and W20. Just forget about this nomenclature of name if you are not okay. But this is, neuron 1. Neuron 1 is trying to learn a hyperplane which type of W11X plus W21Y greater than or less than W10 and vice versa. Neuron 1 is learning one hyperplane for region 1, another one is learning another hyperplane for region number 2. Okay. Then Wij is the ith and the, so if I say where this Wij is actually the ith layer, ith neuron of the jth input and so on. So it's just nomenclature, don't worry, because notes are going to be available with you. Now comes the important thing, that this neuron is looking both of them. This neuron is also looking both of them. There is another neuron. This is my neuron number 3. It is also looking both of them, but not the original data, but the output that I have got from my previous neurons. My previous neurons are actually giving me some output. They are looking the real data. This guy is not even looking the real data. It is just getting the responses or the decisions, or if I say that whether it got fired or not and whether this got fired or not. You just look at this guy as my MS student, and these are my BTech students. And one BTech student is working on one set of problem, and the same problem there is another student who is working. Both of them are trying to solve, and then this guy is trying to see that this is doing in a different way, how much amount of weight I should have to give to him, how much amount of weight should I have to give to him, and then I merge both of them so as to give the best possible output, and then he used to come and show it to me, and I am the loss function. And I will say that whether it is good or bad or whatever, because I'm the supervisor. I will tell you that whether it is right or wrong.
Prof, how do we visualize a layer in this case?
This is one layer.
Okay, so
This is my second layer.
okay, because just because it is both are receiving from one source, or what is the demarcation?
Yes. So this is point is that in fully connected, everything is connected to everything. You see that if here we are having 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions or 5, each and
Okay.
everything is going to be connected to this guy, and the
Okay.
same is going to happen with the other guys.
Oh.
These guys are never being connected to themselves.
Okay. Okay.
They will be connected to the previous layer.
Okay. Okay. So now if N3, if any other neuron is connected to N3 alone, so that will be still a second layer with just
Yeah.
N3 and the other neuron.
Yeah, so it may be suppose that N4, then this is the way.
Okay. Okay.
This
Got it.
N4.
Okay.
And this is one layer.
Understood. Understood. Thank you.
Okay. So how can we represent N1 and you know the neuron 1 and neuron 2? So neuron 1 is having 2 weights and a bias. Neuron 2 is also having 2 weights and a bias. And we just write the whole thing in the form of matrix, that this multiplied by this plus this is this, similarly this, and that is I1 and I2. That are actually the outputs that we are getting over here, I1 and I2. And what N3 is doing, it is having its own W31 and 32. It's operating over I1 and I2 and doing the linear combination of that. Very simple. So fully connected network, if I say, what does that mean? That each and every neuron is connected to everything in the previous layer. That is why it is fully connected. If it is a fully connected, the whole computation can actually be seen as what? It can be seen as matrix multiplication. Yes. So let us see this region merging, which means that I am having my inputs like this. One neuron is learning something like this. Other neuron is learning something like this. And third neuron is trying to merge the outputs of my previous things, and it is going to learn something like this. So now you can see that instead of one neuron, why you require more and more neurons? Because your data can actually be having this type of variation, and if it's having this type of variation, then single neuron will not be in a position to even learn. What is the objective of this neuron? This neuron's objective is to minimize my loss function, because that is my final layer. What is the objective of this neuron, by the way? The objective of this neuron and this neuron is so that it is going to help this guy. They need not to solve the complete problem, because if they try to solve the complete problem, they need to learn maybe something like this. They may learn something else. But here this guy is trying to back propagate these neurons in such a way so that, hey guys, you need not to solve the whole thing. Even you are not aware of that what we are doing, because you even don't have seen the loss function. You will actually be penalized by this guy. Hey, I have got loss is penalizing this is penalizing them. Because as a guide, I will say, hey, this is wrong. Then he will ask that, what is wrong? I said that, no, this has to be something like this. And then he will say, oh, this part is being given. Maybe this part is being given by this guy, so I will penalize this guy with this. And this part was actually being given by this guy, so I need to penalize this guy by this. And they know that, okay, I am doing something wrong over here. I need to check it over here and then send it again. And I'll do something better over here and then send it again. So the learning you understand that the hidden layer is to help the upcoming neuron and layers so as to facilitate. Now you see that if I have more neurons in one layer, if I have more neurons in one layer, it will learn this, something else may learn this, and it may learn something else. And you can see that your data is actually, having something, a closed structure. So if I learn 3 planes like this, maybe third guy started to learn a triangle sort of a structure, which is encapsulating the things. So this is actually the hidden layers. They are learning different representations that may be useful for my upcoming penultimate layer, so that when they got consolidated, our final output or the final region boundaries become consistent towards the actual region boundaries. By the way, this is also called as vertical scaling, which means that adding more and more neurons into one layer. Now, what will happen if I add, what will happen if I have my input not of 2 dimensions, but maybe of 3 dimensions? Then instead of line, we will be learning hyperplanes. And then their merger is going to be complete surfaces.
Prof, just one question. What do we call the feedback that the output layer gives to the hidden layer? What is the term?
That is called as gradient. So it's anyways going to give you the gradient, and that is called as done using back propagation.
Okay, thank you.
So you will get a loss, and they keep on back propagating to our previous layers, right? This is our another slide in which we are trying to show that if you have horizontal scaling, means that instead of adding more neurons into one layer, if I add more layers, then first layer is trying to learn something like this. Second layer initially was learning this, but we have one more guy, one more MS student came. So this is also looking what both of them have done. This is also looking what both of them have done. And this is giving some other weight. This is giving something else. And then there is a PhD student who is merging both of them and coming up with the loss. And then show it to me. Then I will scold and say, no, this is wrong, something. And he will give losses to them, and they will actually get their corresponding gradients and keep on changing. Everyone is happy for his gradient, by the way, looking for his gradients. If you get your correct gradients, you can understand that what is the direction in which you need to go. Why? Because gradient, the reverse direction minus eta, and just update yourself, you have got the updated value. So here now you can see that this is complex boundaries, and this is actually a much more complex thing. It's almost like a surgical strike. It will come over here, go inside that, and completely comes out. So if you have non-linear boundaries, complex non-linear boundaries, you need to add more and more layers. Scaling is also happening, horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Both of these things are actually being there. One final thing about the back propagation, anyways, you all are aware of this in our last lecture, just giving on the top that this is my input layer. This is my hidden layer. This is my output layer. I have got a loss when it is going in the forward direction. It's a fully connected network. Only matrix multiplication is happening. And you will get your final value y hat. Given y hat, you also have your given y hat, you also have your corresponding y, that's your ground truth. Find out the loss, because loss is defined over y and y hat. Once you have got your loss L, you need to differentiate that loss with respect to W1. Why? Because you need to because these are your weights. W1 is actually these weights, all these weights. So you take your L, differentiate it with respect to all these weights over here, and you can update all these weights. How can you update these weights? These weights require del L by del W2. How you can get del L by del W2? Why? you cannot get directly because W2 is not directly associated to it. So partial derivative del L by del W2 is going to be del L by del W1. We just have computed for our previous layer, multiplied by del W1 by del W2. So that's actually being written over here, that del L by del W2 is nothing but this multiplied by this, and this is actually what is happening, the back propagation. Whatever the layers you have, first to compute loss, back propagate, back propagate, back propagate, back propagate, back propagate. By the way, this, if your layers are too much, this is also going to create some vanishing gradient issues. Somebody was asking in between, just to give you the simple intuition. This vanishing gradient mean that if you keep on multiplying A1 into A2 into A3 into A4 and so on, and if it's actually a repetitive multiplication, either that value will explode or it will vanish. If value of AI is less than 1, it will keep on vanishing. If it's more than 1, it's going to be exploded. Exploding gradients are very easy to manage because exploding gradient, what does it mean? It means that I have got a gradient in a direction, because direction is anyways going to be given to you. So you have got a direction. The only thing is that the value is very high. You just clip that. You have got a vector which is very long. You just say that, no, we do not want that high or long vector. We just want this vector. So clip it. Vanishing gradient is actually an issue, because what will happen that your gradient, if your gradient becomes vanished, your network is not learning at all, because your derivative becomes 0. If your derivative becomes 0, then delta of Wi will actually be W old, and then it's not changing, or your weights are not changing. And if your weights are not changing, your network is not learning. So for vanishing gradients, there are so many, this is actually the problem of vanishing gradients being solved using so many other things, like sometimes we use activation like ReLU, and so many other, regularization stuffs and other things are required to somehow manage this vanishing gradient issues. But deep networks are going to have more and more vanishing gradient issue, because you all can understand that 1 multiplication 2 multiplication 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and so on.
Prof,
Yes.
Just one question. How do I choose between one single layer with lots of neurons or multiple layers with fewer neurons? Any like methodology, or how do I choose between these two?
Yes. So the clear and straightforward answer to this is that initially, when in 2012 or pre 2012, they actually tried huge amount of hit and trial, and try to understand that how this layer business is working. 13, 14, 15, they have come up with so many different types of networks and models, and this whole body of knowledge got saturated at a point that, okay, hyperparameterization is no more a hit and trial, but available networks, you see how they are working, what type of layers, how many neurons, how many types of filters they are applying, and just utilize that.
Okay, so if I have a given problem and if I want to check the performance, I just use 2 networks and just see what the performance is. That's all. Yes,
you just the performance, and then started to tweak them slightly, add 1 layer or 2 layers and remove few layers and add few neurons and so on.
Got it. Good. Thank you.
Yes. Now
can we also say that more number of neurons in single layer can lead to faster learning?
That was the case. I will talk about this, about ResNet and other things. You will say that more neurons may be faster to converge, or more layers are also fine for us to learn the complex functions. But obviously there is a trade-off. If you have more and more parameters, then you require more and more data, and requires each and every parameter need to be properly tweaked and trained. So training time is also getting more and more. And similarly, data also started to be overfitting. because you are going to have more and more parameters, then overfitting is also going to happen in between. So you cannot directly say that you require more and more parameters and so on, but yes, that is true, and huge amount of time they spend. Actually, somebody was asking with this question to Chetan sir as well, that is it mean that we keep on adding more and more layers? And then ResNet came. ResNet say that you can add 5, 10, 15, 20 and 30 and 40 layers. After that, things started to become, much more complex. Vanishing gradients and other things are happening, and initial layers will not be trained properly. Then they have come up with, residual connection idea that we will be covering, by which you can train deeper networks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Somebody was asking how error Chirag is asking before that Meenakshi. Gradient is reflected to immediate previous layer or till input layer. Gradients are, going to be for each and every layer, but loss is directly dependent upon the final layer. That is why you can directly get the derivative with respect to the weights of the final layer, but other layers are going to get a multiplicative effect the way I just have shown. So that is the difference, but it will go up to the first layer. Input layer is not going to be changed, but the input layer is actually having certain weights. So if you see it in this way, that first hidden layer is having weights by which it is being connected to each and every input. So everything need to be back propagated and tweaked and trained. How error and loss related, direct or indirect, are not related at all? They are related, as I have said, but you must have seen that our loss function is not directly, that how many errors that we have incurred, because that will make it gradient. Sorry, that may make it a discrete. And that is why we have said that we can have logistic error, we can have a cross entropy error and error like that. So cross entropy or MSE or something like that. So that is indirectly connected to error. If you minimize your cross entropy, which means that somehow your misclassification is reducing. Is there any difference? Is there any difference between logistic and sigmoid? Yeah, same, they are same. Yeah, sigmoid activation is actually the logistic function. Thanks for the explanation. Yes.
Is the output layer has the lowest computation?
See, let me open it up because we are going to have more and more sessions. So it's not directly that, but
Okay, then we can see later. No problem.
yes. Okay. Someone else, sir. When to go for horizontal and vertical, as pattern of data, as I have already answered this, that you need to see the existing 10 to 15 state-of-the-art networks, and they are going to give you a good amount of understanding that how to design a network. Praveen, your question is that how to design, and I am saying that designing is an issue, and you need to be seeing the publicly available these networks. Several we are going to cover, and more or less it's got almost saturated. You slightly need to tweak your hyperparameters, adding few more layers or reducing, but right from the scratch, nobody, right now I do not say that you need to make completely new networks right from the scratch. Is it possible to train with less amount of data? Is true, and yes, that is actually the challenge, as Chirag Chetan was also saying, that training with less data is actually the challenge, because what will happen that you have less amount of data but you have big networks. Several times it may happen that the amount of storage that you require for your data is even far less than your network itself. Your network is taking 500 MB, and your data and your training data is taking 50 MB data, and network is 500 MB. Just to imagine, such a complex network will even memorize each and every of your data and completely become overfit. You are a giant who can remember each and everything, and you have a copy in that you just write 5 questions I'm teaching you, just write 5 those things, and when I'm taking your exam, I'm only asking those 5 things from memory. You just give me the answer. So you have not understood anything, but you just have memorized, and that is actually going to happen and going to make your learning completely not even generalizable at all. Yes, is it possible? Does the data type of input features have any impact? Yes, data type, but so data type essentially is going to be like data type is going to be like modality. If it is image, or if it is numbers, or if it is time series. So it depends. So for that we have different networks, by the way. So yes, we are going to have different networks for them, in fact. Right. So we need to see, I mean, we are going to see that for time series, we are going to have a different network. When I complete FC fully connected, which is done, fully connected is done, and that is the thing you may be going to see in your lab as well. But you will see
Selected
that
network selection is one problem, but then within that network, the number of layers and the number of neurons, does it depend on the input vector, or for that also we just reference previous examples that are already
yeah, so
used?
so that's true. So for different problems, let me tell you that suppose that you want to do segmentation, then there are n numbers of segmentation networks. You can see them and design your network with respect to them. If you want to solve a classification problem, there are n different types of classification networks. Try to get inferences from them, but definitely it is going to be dependent upon your input. If your input is very simple, you do not require too many number of layers and so on. And if your input is very complex, or your data is very complex, or your data is having noise like that, your labels are noisy, they are not correct, out of 150% label is wrong, then you require more and more complex networks to deal with. So which means that more and more layers and proper designing. So it definitely depends upon that, upon the input.
Yeah, sure, thanks.
Yes, is the difference with generalization and testing error. Yes, so if I say that if okay, so there is again a philosophical point that when I say testing data, mostly what happen is that whatever data you have got, you divide into two parts, training and testing. But then I say that do your testing data covers all possible variation, and if your answer is yes, then it is equivalent. But most of the time it is not. I cannot show you all possible face images as testing. So generalization is something that that completely unseen data, and maybe having multiple testing sets over that, how you are performing. Srinivasan, sir, in dropouts, our weights are distributed between the neurons. See, in each and every case, our weights are connected. So I will take a neuron and say that it's got dried, or we are not going to consider it. All possible weights which are connected to this neuron, they are not considered at all. So they are anyways this neuron will be connected to each and every neuron of the next layer, and that is why it is having connections. So when in dropout design, is it the part of the back propagation? Yes. So back propagation is also going to happen, but those neurons, weights are not changed. In fact, let me tell you that I guess that it is the case that when we do the forward pass, their inputs are, or their computation is being done, but it is not considered because that neuron is not present at all for that computation itself. So whatever the forward pass is happening, because from that forward pass, your output is being computed and loss is being generated. So that is why back propagation happens full. But while considering the forward pass and getting the output, those neurons which are selected for not to be used as the dropout, their outputs are not considered so as to get the final output during forward propagation. Different scale of data can we give for? Yes. So that is actually an issue, Akash. And if your data is having different types of scales, variation, it is actually called as a very specific term is there, that is called as what we used to say, and for that we we require batch normalization. So data is anyways going to be normalized, but each and every data point or upcoming batches is going to have a huge amount of scale variation, and for that we need to use batch normalization. I will try to see if we get time at some point, we will try to tell you that batch normalization, how it is being done. But anyways, it's a single line of code that you can use during your lab. Yes, anyone else? If you have any question, you can write. You can also give your feedback. We have got a very lengthy session right from 9:30, almost 1 or 2 breaks of 10 minutes or something I have given. So you can also write your feedback here in the chat panel, that whether you are in a position to understand or yeah, Meenakshi is saying good session, great session, sir. Good. If you have any feedback, please keep on writing, because you can understand that this feedback is going to be useful. Even we can, because that is anyways my gradient. So you can give me gradient, and we can tweak the way in which I deliver upcoming things. So explaining the things in the easiest way is yes, that is the thing. Somebody will say that I wanted to listen some complex things as well. But yes, learned a lot, required mathematical basis. Yes, nice explanation, well paced. Yes, really helpful. Clear. Charu is saying clear. Others can also write. Please keep on writing, because if you are not giving your output, yeah, I really appreciate the way. Thank you, Satyendra ji. Fundamental concepts, thought complex in simple manner. Yes, Rashmi, it's clear. Many doubts, mathematical portion, very Shiv Shankar, very, very interesting. Sessions are informative, good, simple examples, fine. Yeah, things were simple. That's why I was able to give you a simple example, but it may be the case that upcoming things are going to be much, much more complex. So we need to be, completely geared it up. Explanation is the easiest way. I didn't feel 1 p.m. already. She said, that's true. That's true. And but I have started to feeling hungry. Yes, that's true. Session was very interesting. Yes, basic cover. Deeply is very good. Oh, Richa. So Richa, yes, that's true. Deeply, I assume that you may be aware of much more complex things. But yes, we have to, lay all the basics which are required, and it's actually a completely curated lecture for all of you. These type of things, actually, even I have not used any textual material to write these things. I sat one day and understood that what are the things which are required for my first lecture, and I write it on my own. There may be some mistakes as well, because randomly I started to write this stuff. I will upload it, very soon. Maybe today's session, once it's finished. In between, once I got time, because I am also not getting time even not to go to washroom. So, I will upload it once our lab sessions start. Fundamentals were helpful. Yesterday's session was a bit, yes, that's true, but those things are also, important. And the point is that I am covering things from the top, and whatever I have covered, that was it's very, very simple currently. Agreed the above. One request, yesterday video link were shared. However, PPTs, yes, I have asked. I guess that Chetan has not shared his PPT. I will again ask Chetan to please share his PPT, but I guess Dilip has shared, so those things are anyways available. So today things will also be available in the same folder. They are going to give you the things. In the upcoming lab, please explain data set. Yes, these guys are better than me, by the way, Ashok sir. And these are my students, but they are better than me, and they are going to talk each and everything whatever you want. So they will give you each and everything that is being required. They are experienced guys. Can we get some practice material to test our, yes. So you are going to get this practical knowledge in our second upcoming. Himani is saying thank you. Chitej, yes, concept that you taught. Yes, Chirag, we are going to do that. Can you share resources? Yes, I will try to share these resources like whatever we have covered, as well as along with that, I will try to give you more resources if you people are interested. And we keep on, having more and more resources. So don't worry. One small announcement is that today we are going to have, lab sessions, but in between those lab sessions, I need to take one lecture. So it may be an issue for you to spend that much time and understand these complex things. But the point is that we have only fixed amount of time and we need to figure out the ways to finish the stuff. I need to give you the understanding of convolutional neural network, because that is also going to be there in the lab. So first what we will do is that first we are going to have our fully connected lab, a fully connected networks lab. Once it is finished, I will take maybe 30 minutes or an hour session of convolutional neural network, and then we will have our CNN lab. If in between any guy feel that he is completely exhausted, this and that, I understand. And what you can do is that take a break in between. I although don't suggest, but everything is going to be uploaded on YouTube, and lectures are going to be recorded. So at any point of time, you can revise. Which tools? Google Colab, and I guess TensorFlow and Keras. Yes, so with this, I guess we are done. Thank you very much. We are going, so please join your session at 2. From 2, we will start our session. And once your fully connected things are done, convolutional neural network, I need to explain, and then we are going to have our CNN lab today itself. We'll try to finish as per our schedule. Yes. Thank you very much, and join at 2 p.m.
So theory followed by lab.
Yes, theory is going to be followed by lab at 2 p.m.
Okay.
today.
Fine. Thank you.
Google Colab. Thank you very much. Google Colab.
Sir,
Yes, thank you very
first fully connected lab will happen, no, sir. After that, the theory.
Yes, Rashmi. Sorry, Preeti. First fully connected lab, and then
Yes,
I will teach them CNN, and then you will be having your CNN lab.
okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.